Hi, I'm Amy Edwards, and welcome to the Edwards Table. This podcast is all about real conversations, the kind that come from life, love, family, friendship, and all the messy, beautiful parts in between. I started this show because I believe in redemption stories and in sitting down together to talk about the things that shape us, heal us, and sometimes just make us laugh. So grab a seat, take a breath, and join me, because there's always room for you here at the Edwards Table. Well, hey everyone, and welcome back to the Edwards Table. I'm Amy Edwards, and I'm joined again today by my husband, John, just to continue our conversation that we kind of left off with last time. So if you joined us for season 1, you probably listened in and heard me talk to our daughter, Maddie, about when we lost everything. So over the course of, I guess, the first several years that we were married, I know you already talked about, like moving to Memphis and starting to learn kind of the building industry, if you will. And just, we don't have to go deep into detail of how it all came to be, but over the course of the first several years, you worked for a builder, and then you partnered up with some builders, and then eventually we started a company, and we're doing really, really well back in the, what was that, I guess early, mid-2000s?
Well, early 2000s. So,
well, 2005, right?
Yeah, that's true. Mid.
I don't know how you say that. Sorry, 2000.
So, yeah,
like the
2000.
the 0 to 10.
Yeah,
like in the middle of that.
Yeah.
But
But yeah, it was going well. I mean, the late 90s was well too. Even when I was working for the last guy I was working for, it was we did really well, even working for him.
Yeah, but I'm just saying.
And it just came about like he had offered to me and his son-in-law to start making us partners in the business, and we had a tough decision to make. And I remember bringing that home to you because we were already thinking we were going to make this parting way, and you were like,
Well, you finish that thought though. You were trying to part ways so that you could start your own company.
Oh yeah, so because we were talking about parting ways to start our own building company, really partnering with somebody else and starting a building company, and and so I remember bringing that home, like what the percentage was going to be and what that meant long term and whatever else. And it was, everything happens for a reason, but I just remember, you were like, if you don't ever try, even if you fail, you'll never forgive yourself for doing that and doing something outside of this, which was true.
Yeah.
I mean, at the time going through all that, I didn't think, I was like, dang it, I should have stayed at home. But we learned so much through that too.
Sure.
Not just, about the business world and financially, whatever else, but also about ourselves as a family and what that meant, which was even more important.
Yeah. Well,
through that time.
I mean, I think that, my why behind that was I knew that you always had the goal and the dream of really and truly being on your own as a company, like being able to, even if it were a partnership, but like doing your own thing, not working for someone.
Yeah.
And so also knowing the person that owned the company that you were working for at the time, he would always make it too good, like these amazing offers to keep you around. And I knew that if you didn't say yes, you were just going to keep going back and sticking there. And for you, I knew it was important to try, go out and give it a twirl, because that's what you really wanted to do.
Yeah.
But from there, we started the partnership and started up the company, and
We did, and that was the first mistake in doing it, was how we structured it. Of being 50-50 partners with no controlling interest, whatever. But this is not a conversation about all that. But basically, those were the lessons that we learned going forward of whatever, because we held on way, way too long into this when we should have kind of cut bait and moved on.
Yeah. Well, I think so we started the company, and at that point.
Yeah, it was great. It was a good time to be in the building business. Mm-hmm. It was during that entire, basically what started during the Clinton administration, of everyone pretty much with a heartbeat could get a mortgage.
Right.
And the construction industry exploded. And it wasn't the typical cyclical chain of up and down, good time with bad time. It kind of just kept going up for a good 8-12 years, it seemed like. Mm-hmm. And being young in that, I was like, this is never going to change. This is easy money. And so, but yeah, it was, I can vividly remember signs now that I look back on it and see how people were getting mortgages. Mm-hmm. And then too, I always tell the story of when it started going bad, being in a subdivision and people showing back up in our model home with the keys to the house. Mm-hmm. And saying, here's the keys, we're moving out this weekend.
Right.
We still own the house.
Yeah.
And we were just giving them this false loan or whatever else. It was like, whoa, we don't own the house anymore.
Right.
That's have you talked to your mortgage company? Yeah, we just can't afford it, we're moving out. So it was crazy when it did start going bad, how that went. But when it was good, and when we started was right at the tail end, right before, within a couple of years of the collapse starting.
Yeah.
And for those 2 or 3 years, it was really good. Mm-hmm. And we were killing it. I can't remember how many houses we closed that first year. I don't know, 40 homes, 50 homes, something like that.
Yeah.
And then I think the most we ever did prior to the collapse, and of course part of it is that when I worked for whom I worked for before, we were doing 100, 120, a 3-man crew of running this, and really just like Brian and I, mm-hmm. out in the field of doing 100, 120 homes a year.
Yeah.
Or 80, 90 homes. When they got bigger, they took a little bit longer. So that was, but it was still a lot of homes.
Right.
That we were not just building, but we were closing.
Right.
Every year.
Yeah.
So it was, 6.5 days a week. It was a lot of work, but it was very rewarding financially as well too, mm-hmm. for that time. But I can remember though when it started to go bad and sales started to slow down, I was too young I had never gone through any of that, those cyclical turns within the industry. Mm-hmm. I do remember getting advice from people. One was my mother. I remember her saying, are you watching the news? Are you paying attention? Sales are down. And at that time, which was totally naive and kind of dumb, I did not pay attention to what the national rates were, or housing sales, what's the inventory like to sales, and
right.
and whatever else, which are indicators of how the market's kind of trending.
Right.
I pay more attention to that now than I ever did back then, which I should have.
Sure.
Because those would have been signs, high signs to what's going on around us or what's about to come our way.
Yeah.
And of course, the market we were living in was very blue collar compared to like here in
Yeah.
Austin. And so when it did hit us, I know, it was years and years and years before it started to recover. And like here, I talked to people here that were in the industry, and within a year, they were back up building to the same production level they were before. Now, it changed the way lending was done
Yeah.
with financial institutions, and pretty much it became all private money for the most part. But it did, however, at least they were right back to selling again here. So within a year and a half. Where for us, it was like 3-5 years, and we were still just struggling.
Yeah. Well,
Go
no,
ahead.
I was just going to say, in terms of kind of where we were,
Yeah.
you were working all the time, like all of the time,
Yeah.
because you had to. I mean,
Yeah.
there wasn't and when you weren't working, you were
Playing.
hunting, golfing.
Hunting, golfing, spending money, all kinds of good things.
And so, like, I shared with Mad, for our family dynamic, because I was trying to think, like, how old she was. She and Quinn were, like, 4 and 9, 5 and 10, 4 and 9, 3 and 8, probably in that range, like, as things were humming along. And then the wheels started to kind of bump. And then by the time they were 5 and 10 is when we came into the '08 situation, and the economy started to tank.
Yes.
So, like, the kids at the
'07,
time,
the end of '07, right into '08, it was getting rough. And by the end
well,
of...
it would have been '08 because that's when we took them out of school, was at the beginning of that school year, '08, '09.
Exactly. That's what I was about to say. And at the end of '08 was when we sold the house over Christmas.
I thought, well, it was on the market for a year.
Yeah, but we got out of it in...
I thought it was '09 we got out of it.
No, I think it
Was it '08?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It
It was...
became a
yeah,
blur.
it was tough.
But, like, I know when Matt and I, I was telling her, like, during that time, before, like, right, several months before, I had come to this place where I was getting really worn out with where our relationship was, and I just felt like all I did was take care of the kids, take care of the house, and it felt more like roommates instead of like husband and wife at that point.
I think it had been going on longer than that beforehand.
No, I'm not saying how long it had been going on. I'm just saying it was probably about 6 months before where we really started feeling the economy crunching and needing to get out of the house, whatever.
Yeah.
But going to, I went on my girls' trip and scrapbooking because I'm really wild like that. But just realizing in the moment where I had been and versus where I really should have been in my head. Because, I was taking advice from people who weren't in successful marriages. I was listening to, people tell me I deserved so much more than what you were giving. And hindsight, I look at that and I'm thinking, okay, you built us like this ginormous house. I drove a nice car. I never had to we never wanted for anything, like food, clothes, money to spend, trips to go on, all of that, like in terms of those things. But the one missing piece was like our actual relationship between you and me.
Yes. On the outside,
And we were
did a
both
lot
hurting, in that.
I think on the outside, we did a lot of things. We were still involved in our church quite a bit. I know that when we first got married, shortly thereafter, I had gotten hooked on Dave Ramsey. We started doing that. We snowballed all of our debt. We were totally debt-free. Mm-hmm. And then it was like everything, which would have been helpful during that time, but because we had money in the bank enough to cover it, I had a brand new truck, or it was a year old, 2 years old, something like a year and a half old. You had that car that you wanted. No kidding.
Do not even with me.
So in any case, but we had two new, and for the first time in like, I don't know, 8 years, we had car notes.
Right.
10 years, we had car notes. And I was like, oh, well, it's not a big deal because we can just take cash out of the bank, pay it off at any time.
Right.
So we'll just do it, blah, blah, blah. Because I had the same thing where people were like, especially like driving a truck, where like, don't pay the truck off, write it off for your business. You should be paying, just finance it and pay it off. It's a deduction and all this other kind of stuff. So I was listening to a lot of that as well, and it just changed the whole thing of how we had been living.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, we got really
and then
cocky.
it came to an absolute like collapse,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we so when I came back from that trip, I know both of us kind of over that weekend had just a realization, right, of like
yeah,
what we thought we were going to do, which at the time I had talked about before. I literally I was ready to move out, get a divorce.
correct, yeah.
Take
I
the
think we had
kids.
had that conversation and we knew it wasn't going that way, and both of us had already been thinking that, what would it be like to not be married
Yeah.
anymore? And how long have we been married then? About 10 years? 8 years?
08 would have been
So about 10
9.
years. 9 years, yeah.
because we got married in 97.
So not quite 10 years, so about 9 years. So yeah, so we were fighting quite a bit, arguing, and yeah, I know I was thinking of, what it would be like to be divorced. But the thing that kept bringing me back was, I talk about this a lot to individuals that we know, is that growing up, I remember, especially early on when my parents were really young and we were young, I was maybe 7, 8, 9 years old, maybe 10 years old. And it's a story my mother hates, but of where they would argue with each other, and they would have some knockdown, drag out arguments. Never physical, never personal in the attack of like name calling or dog cussing one another or anything like that, which you and I didn't do that either.
No.
We would cuss per se, but
Yeah.
not
We get loud and
cussing the other one like you stupid B word, whatever,
Yeah,
whatever.
no.
That didn't happen.
no.
But I just remember that through all of that, my mom and dad stuck it out. And then once I got through that hurdle, they didn't do this. My mom hates this. She's like, oh, don't tell anybody. But what I also tell her in that is that it was good for us to see,
Oh yeah.
because it taught us a loyalty that is missing from a lot of marriages today
Yeah.
and from a lot of relationships. And it taught us you're going to go through tough times, but, the old saying, ride or die is your spouse.
Right.
No matter what.
Right.
And thick or thin, and trials, tribulations, whatever it is, you fight it out, you make up, and then you fight it together.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. And so that's what I kept coming back to. And then too, like the what if scenario, I was like, oh my gosh, and it would make me really upset. And of course, a lot of what we were fighting about was what we wanted out of the relationship individually, I think,
Sure.
to fulfill our own needs.
Yeah.
And I think I've talked to people about this, and I know you and I talked about it when we were saying it, but trying to put it in the right words and the context is, when you did your scrapbooking thing and I was at home with the kids that weekend, one, I always enjoyed the kids. We always had, even during all that, we pretty much had a pretty good routine of when we clean up dinner, the other would get kids ready for bed and spend that time, and then vice versa the next night. And we did that every other night from the time they were born.
When you were home.
When I was home.
Yes.
And I do know there were some times, especially when they were infants, that I wasn't home yet.
Well, depending
and I
on
was
time
going
of the
down.
year, because of the weather. Like if it was summertime, it was guaranteed we wouldn't see you until much later because
Yes.
it was light and you had to
Yes.
work till dark.
So, but in any case, in all of that, I had to think for a minute. So, in all of that, the thing that I've told people is in those situations, what I realized was I did start praying about it. That was one of those times that I mentioned it in a couple of others. You know, we were always involved in church, but I knew all of a sudden it dawned on me that, you know, I was going to lose you, and I didn't want to lose you for a lot of reasons. For you, for one, that it was against God's will, I believed. I also believe in the sanctimony of marriage and two becoming one. And I knew we weren't acting as one at all and hadn't been for a long time. But, you know, I had to humble myself and what I wanted out of the relationship,
Yeah.
which was a lot of, you know, physicality from you, but it was, you know, given that, willing to give it up and to pray that out loud, that I am willing to do without what I want out of this
Yeah.
and just make it better,
Yeah.
you know, essentially.
Yeah.
And that was, two, me getting right with God during that time. And then two, we were, you know, we were just starting to go through losing everything. And I was seeing the last $10,000 that we had. And I was like, oh my God, what have we done? What have I done? Whatever else, you know. And we weren't going to be able to afford the following month to make the house payment, pay the utility bills, and all that fun was going to start,
Yep.
you know.
And it came.
Oh, yeah.
It did. Well, and I think the thing is like, you know, when we'll tell kind of a quick version of this time in our lives, you know, when we say to people, I mean, we lost everything. And when I say everything, I mean, two
yeah.
cars repossessed. We took
Yeah.
$44,000 to closing to our house, and we'd already knocked money off of what we were asking for.
Yeah.
It took a year to sell it.
Actually, we didn't have to take money to closing.
Well, we were supposed
We
to.
were supposed to, and that was part of my negotiation, which was a whole nother thing on, you know, 3 days before Christmas or whatever, and that one banker, not very fond of bankers, but not anymore, not after that experience. But I remember we were moving stuff, preparing for closing, and I was standing on a 16-foot trailer in our front yard, backed up to the front doors. We're moving stuff out. And he calls, and he says, you and Amy are going to have to sign a personal guarantee on a loan for $44,000, $45,000. And I was like, there's no way I can pay that back. I cannot pay that. And he kept pushing all this stuff, and I snapped. I do remember that. I snapped in tears. And I was like, I tell you what, son of a gun, here's what I'm doing first thing tomorrow morning. I'm going and hiring an attorney and filing bankruptcy. And I'm staying right in this house, and all of y'all can figure it out in so many words. That's not really what I
like
said.
your edited version.
In my edited version, it's way calmed down. I said, but that's what I'm going to do tomorrow, and you kiss my butt, you know, and hung up on him. And he called me back. He was like, hey. And this was a guy that we had been friends with before he became my
very
banker.
good friends with.
We had gone on vacation with before,
Yes.
whatever else. And he
Yeah.
was strong-arming me on this deal. And I just said, I tell you what, yeah, I'm done with you.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I told him that, and I didn't answer the phone a couple of times. Finally answered the phone. I was like, what do you want? And he just said, don't file bankruptcy, don't file bankruptcy. And I said, well, I am 2 seconds away from doing it. The only reason I hadn't called the attorney now is because it's 6:30 at night, whatever it was.
Yeah.
He goes, let me just, I'll call you right back. I was like, okay. He called back. He was like, okay, y'all won't have to sign anything. Just get the house closed. And I was like, all right, we will. And so, I think it was, I may have had to sign it, but I was like, you're not signing anything anymore.
Yeah.
You know, because one of the things that we found out during that time.
We did have to do that.
Yeah.
Somehow.
I think one of the things we found out during that time was bankers had been doing things illegally with companies. We were a corporation. You were not an owner of the corporation.
Right.
Neither was my partner's wife. But they would have you guys come in and sign these personal guarantees on these lots that we were taking out, and lot loans, construction loans, and everything else.
Right.
And when this happened, you know, I started hearing from like WV, everybody else, it's like, man, it's not even legal.
Right.
That they're, you know, that's the first thing that attorneys started opening up all these agreements. So we're like, your wife has no responsibility on this. She's not an owner of the company. She can't guarantee the loan.
Right.
And I was like, oh, so that was our very first thing. It was like, she's not signing another dang paper.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
And so, so that was the first thing, was finding that out.
Yeah.
You know, during that. So, so we went through that. We did get it closed. That was
Christmas
a whole nother deal. And those people were real charmers. I'll never forget that woman calling up saying she'd been, bamboozled by us. I'm like, oh, what? What are you talking about? Why was she saying that? I can't even
Because
remember.
you took the shelving down out of the garage, and you really should have left it. I mean,
didn't know.
honestly.
Sorry.
But at that point, I mean, yeah, we should have left it because it was attached or whatever. And we didn't know, we weren't like reinforced and told, hey, by our real estate agent, you need to leave that. That's considered part of the structure.
Or part of the house now that it's up
Oh,
there,
yeah. So.
And it wouldn't have been any big deal. It was a whole lot more work to take it out of the wall than it was to, you know, to buy new ones and put it up. But it
Well,
was like,
and
whatever.
I think too, at that point, I mean, we were, both of us, you know, we had tried to sell everything we could.
Yes.
We got rid of as much as we could and just to get money.
Yeah, it was tough. I remember like the repossession of the vehicles of, you know, when they called and it had gotten to that point, it was like, all right, I got both keys. I'll meet you up. I just didn't want them to come to the house and do it. And I'll just give you the keys. You can drive it off or
And they were
whatever.
very gracious.
And they were gracious about it. And they were like, that's fine. So, you know, and then, And what was crazy was my truck, even though I did have it financed and I'd only had it a year and a half, I only owed about, I bought it brand new, but I'd been paying it. I didn't like having the note on it, so I'd been paying it out of the, you know, company stuff and whatever for, you know, $2,000-3,000 a month. So it only had about $7,000 left on it. I remember my mom saying, "Why did you not tell me that? I would have given you the money at least, you know, as a loan or something like that."
Yeah.
But again, we didn't know what to do, you know.
Well, that's the funny
And
thing
your
about
parents
pride.
were no help whatsoever. They just wanted to tell us what we did wrong.
Yeah.
And it was my fault.
Well, and like I had an easy out, if you will, with them as far as they were concerned. They had offered, you know, to move me and the kids down to Florida.
Yeah, I remember that. Like over that time period of them coming to town and overhearing that conversation of, this isn't your fault, this is his fault.
Yep.
Whatever else. That was pretty demoralizing and debilitating. It was already bad enough. I didn't have anything to get up and go do, you know.
Right.
It was difficult.
Yeah, it was a really hard time. And I think, you know, once we got moved, we moved into another house that we had built
Yep.
through the company that wasn't quite finished, but thankfully City of Bartlett was very gracious and gave us a
Yeah,
cer-
that we didn't
sort
have
of
the
occupancy.
we didn't have the air conditioner set, and there was one other thing too. But
There
we
were.
did get a CO. We knew enough of the inspectors, whatever else. We got to get a CO on the house where we can move into it.
But still gracious. They didn't have to say yes to
That's
that.
true. And I remember we didn't have to have an AC because it was cold. Memphis actually got cold, and it stayed cold until that year. We had a great spring too,
Yeah.
and early summer, and it didn't get hot till almost July.
I know, which every 1 year out of it, maybe every 10 or 12, you'll get something like that.
Yeah, where
it was
it's
incredible.
like just, no humidity, whatever else. And so we were able to ride it as long as we could ride it.
Yeah,
So,
it was good.
yeah, it was. But
And that was, it's so funny too, because like thinking about just the Christmas Eve situation of selling the house, Memphis notorious for winter rain, pouring down rain. We were soaking wet. We had people like help us.
Miserable. I remember our mattress when it finally dried out and we got it in that house was so stained from the water that it had taken on.
Well, I mean, there was water in the bottom of the moving truck, in the
yeah.
U-Haul.
Yeah.
Like, it leaked. It was raining that kind of rain. And we had, it was a 45-minute drive one way from house to house. We moved, we had people helping us during the day, 2 days before Christmas Eve. We
Yeah.
had some folks help us.
We had some people stay to 10, 11 o'clock at night.
And then Christmas Eve, or Christmas Eve, we had people staying till later that night. But then you and I stayed up all night.
Yeah, we did.
We went all the way through the night into the next day,
Yeah.
got everything moved out, and our last trip was going to the office to do the closing, go sign the
Yeah.
closing paperwork and turn in our keys. And then we went over to pick up Matt and Quinn from your mom, and thank God for her and your sister taking them and letting them play with cousins and cousins playing.
And distracting them while we were doing everything. Absolutely.
And I know, like, when I had talked before of just, we went from that into the house we were moving into, and even there, having to fight for utilities to stay on. And
I did. Yeah, we did. But, I also look at it too, and I didn't necessarily, there were parts of it I thought were, but I didn't understand what a big blessing that it was too. Because the one thing that it did was, just like what I talked about, the fight or flight, we either fight together or whatever. We first learned how to patch our relationship, and
which
that
that
was
actually
huge.
happened
Right prior, or right as it was
That's
starting.
Well, it was a little before, because the trip was a couple months before all of that really started going
Yeah,
crazy.
but we knew it was coming. We were down to the last 2 or 3 months of income.
You knew it was coming. I really
Yeah,
didn't.
probably didn't share too much of it, I guess. That was
No.
another bad thing, of not talking about it.
Yeah, no, because it was, we were
And I
chugging
was also,
along.
and I was also thinking, it just wouldn't get that bad, that it would turn around.
Right. Yeah, no,
And it
I
never
didn't.
did.
I didn't know. You didn't talk to
Yeah.
me about that. So we moved, and thank God we had been active in our church. We were a part of a great community.
Yeah,
They knew that we couldn't give our kids Christmas. Your mom was
yeah,
talking about, like, what can I do? What can I do? And we're like, no, you're already doing enough, whatever. But unbeknownst to us, we went and picked the kids up from your mom's and came home, and Maddie was like going nuts. And by that point, so we'd already had the 2 cars repossessed, and thankfully to our friends from Sunday school, he let you buy one of his work trucks.
and pay him monthly for that.
As you could afford
Yeah.
it, what you could afford.
Yep.
So you went from this full-size, fancy pants Ford, all the bells and whistles, to
Yeah. Nissan Frontier. I'm back in one now.
with a king cab.
With a king cab. had the little jump seats on the side that folded down, which was just big enough for the kids to fit in.
Yep.
And yeah, that's what we rolled in for several years.
We did. And so we pulled up to the house, and Maddie was squealing that Santa had come, Santa had come. And both of us, I never forget that, like crying in the front seat, trying to hide my tears and not get too upset, but just devastated because of how special I like to make holidays.
Oh, yeah.
And she was like, no, Santa's come. Look, come on, Quinn. And so they run up to the front door, and, you know, there's a Christmas tree, a live Christmas tree, a bag, trash bag filled with wrapping paper and ornaments and like all kinds of stuff in there. And then a couple of trash bags of gifts and all tagged for the kids and whatever else. And so I stayed up another night, made sure you went to bed.
Yeah.
Because too, well, your back, if you don't get enough rest, is a nightmare. And you had been doing all the laborious, heavy stuff. I hadn't been doing all of that. I mean, I was helping,
very
but
true.
certainly wasn't like hauling mattresses around on my back.
Yeah.
So I stayed up through the night.
I can't fathom having it. I think if we had to move like that, I'd just leave everything here. I'd be able to take a few things, but there's no way I'd be able to move like that again.
I know. It was
Like
insane.
physically.
I know.
Physically.
And like the amount of just what it took out of us both. I mean, it took the physical part, but just emotionally, it was just wrecking during the holidays with young kids, knowing that you knew what you were doing, you did a really good job. It was just the economy.
The market that we were in was just...
It could not adjust and recover quickly enough.
And I didn't have or know the people, like the one person that taught me the most, you know, not the partner that I had, but just he taught me so much in it. I knew we were doing things right as far as what we were building.
Right.
But I still had a lot to learn about how to manage the business side of it. And he was really good at finding, because I think his next thing that he ended up doing was, one, he had a bunch of rental property, but two, you know, the way he negotiated things out of all of that debt during that time. And again, this is where I get back to being a 50-50 partner. My partner wouldn't make a move on anything. It just kept letting the cookie crumble around us. And what we should have done was let the bank have it all back.
Yeah.
Way earlier.
Sure.
And kept our personal money.
Sure.
And never put our personal money towards company.
Yeah.
Ever. Once you take it out, it stays out. But those are the things that we learned from a business standpoint. But again, what we went through personally and what it did to our relationship and my relationship with the kids, of course, was it's just, you know, priceless.
Right.
Absolutely priceless.
Absolutely.
So the financial part doesn't really matter. Yes, there was a learn, or there was an education that was had through all of that. But the biggest thing is the turn in our family.
Yep.
Right? Not that we didn't ever, you know, argue or have fights or butt heads or whatever else. But that was the biggest turning point, I know, in you and I's relationship.
100%.
And what grew us so close together. And still to this day of just learning more and more and more how to continue to foster that.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, that's when, like for you and I, we started like our days off in the mornings. We would start together and we would pray. We'd go grab our Bibles and read. And we typically always read Matthew 6, 24 to 31, I think is that passage about worry. And that was one.
Do not worry. The birds of the air, you know, whatever, and how much more does God love you?
Yeah, Jesus teaching as he does.
And so that was huge. And then the other was Ephesians 5, 21 through 33, I think. So, and the imagery of Christ and the church, the marriage between Christ and the church, and our marriages and what those should look like.
Yeah.
So, and it was like, you know, at certain times in your life, there's scripture and parts of the Bible and passages that are just absolutely revealed to you. Mm-hmm. And I believe at that time that was one that in Ephesians was truly revealed to me, like what the meaning and purpose of that was.
Yeah.
And what that was to look like.
Yeah.
You know, and truly, you know, the part of what it means for the two to become one within God. And
a husband and a wife.
A husband and a wife,
Because
yes.
a lot of people who listen to this, they
yeah.
don't know that much about what we're talking about.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, husband and wife. And what marriage is.
Putting God in the middle.
Correct. And
Yeah.
what that looks like.
Yeah.
And finally understanding, too, not the worldly definition of submission
Right.
to one another and what that means. Like, we have such a worldly view of what that is.
Well, and I think the focus, unfortunately, is always wives submit. We'll also read 2 verses ahead
Correct. As to why.
and listen to
As to why.
what husbands are supposed to submit to first.
Correct. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you go in sequentially in that passage and you look at it.
And it does start off, wives submit to your church, but submit to your husbands. But it also says, you know, it starts with Christ is the head of the church, as the husband is the head of his wife.
Right.
Wives should submit to their husbands. And then the very next thing that it says after that is that Christ gave himself up for the church. So we all know that Christ was crucified for us and hung on a cross, gave his life up willingly so that there would be no harm to us and we could enter heaven. That's our model as a husband for how we are to provide, protect, and take care of our wives. And to present her as being holy and unblemished, okay, radiant to us. So to give that kind of sacrifice, I think what you and I realize is if you're truly as a man, a husband, giving that kind of sacrifice to your wife, then it makes it easier to say, I submit, but out of reverence for you, I'm never going to make a decision without your input. I'm never going to move a direction because my concern now is your well-being before my own.
Right.
And so, do you think this is right?
Right.
Do you think we should do this? And ultimately, we have that discussion. You say, but whatever you feel is best for our family, I'll follow.
Right.
You know, but that's also because you know that we're praying about it together,
Yeah.
individually, whatever else before we move that way or whatever else.
Yeah.
So that became revealed to me during that time and what it was, and it changed my entire outlook on our marriage. And I remember, I know you're going to it when we started that Sunday school class, because I just wanted to tell people that. That's kind of how it started, is that, no, you're not understanding. And I still don't believe people understood, but they have to have their own connection or moment with God to get that.
Oh, sure.
You know?
Yeah.
So, and that's what I couldn't understand. You're not hearing my words.
Well, and
Not everybody, but I'm just saying, I know there were some, right?
Sure.
And two, I don't know, that was just something I was like, just that moment in time that I was very passionate about. And it just was revealed to me. It was like, very revealed to me.
Yeah.
So if I live in this now, it doesn't mean that we always did or always did that. We still butted heads.
Sure. Well, the thing about it
I'm
is,
very easy to live with.
oh my God.
However,
Wow.
no, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
So,
No, but the thing about what you're saying is that when you have something revealed to you, like no matter what it is,
Yeah.
whether it's in your spiritual life or in physical life, whatever, it takes time to kind of unpack it, unpackage it, learn about
Yes.
it, and then live by it.
Yeah,
'Cause,
yeah,
like-
but also the living by it is, what does it really mean, and how is it applicable to your life?
But it takes
And it does take time.
And
right.
it takes, I mean, old habits die really hard.
Oh yeah, we had
And,
tons
like-
of conversations during that. But again, getting back to what I was saying, humbling myself was, instead of just bowing up and walking away and say, "Oh, let the old lady cool down a little bit, and then we'll come back later." I was very sincere in saying, "What did I say that hurt your feelings, and that made you feel like I don't respect what you're doing or whatever else?" And it took a while, right? Because you were like, "No, I'm not talking." No, it's like, how can I change it, Amy, if we don't talk about it, and vice versa,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
And we were trying to trust each other again to say, no,
Right.
this isn't like before, and it's just, FaceTime to say it, and then go on, and then tomorrow you do the same thing again.
right.
It's like, I truly want to change this about myself with you, that is hurting your feelings, and vice versa. Tell me, what it is, and trying to understand as you're putting into words, like how it makes you feel, or where it hurt you, in that. So it did change. Again, it totally changed our relationship.
Oh, for sure. For sure. It
Yeah.
was very much a pivotal moment. And, you were talking about that. I mean, you fast forward, and I get a phone call from Quinn's English teacher his freshman year, and he goes,
Oh yeah,
he's
yeah. I
like,
was like, where are you going with this?
"Mrs.
What does
Edwards,
Quinn got to do with this?
This is Mr. So-and-so, and he was like, I just grading your son's paper that he had to turn in about the most impactful thing in his life. And he said, I want to believe that what he's written is true, but I also know that he might be embellishing. And he sent me a copy, and before I got to look at it, though, he said the title of his is Losing Everything But Getting My Dad Back. And I just think it's such a beautiful sentence, if you will, or phrase, to really give meaning to having to go through. I mean, we've walked to the thresholds of the gates of hell multiple times in this marriage, going through some really hard things, right? And we've only talked about a few of the really hard things.
Correct. But it's like, I think I may have mentioned it in one of the previous ones too, is that, again, my model in marriage was my parents fighting against everything around them. And that's what, it just grew our bond so much, which is another example of the two becoming one. And we were always on that same side. It just became even more so then, that it was like, okay,
Right.
if we go down in this ship, then let's go down, drown together, whatever it is, but it's
Yeah.
going to be you and I together,
Right.
period. And, I think back to marital counseling, pre-marriage marital counseling and whatever, of saying, hey, one of the biggest things that kills marriage is probably the number one cause of divorce is financial problems. When you start to go through it. And Lord, if we didn't hit that one, and we hit it hard. And then to hear things too, like I mentioned previously, of your mother sitting in there having those conversations of telling you to pack up, pack the kids, come down there, take care of everything, and let me just go down with it by myself. I figured, yeah, why wouldn't you take that? So, and that's even after we had reconciled and whatever else, it was still tough to have people coming to the door all the time trying to collect and
Oh, we got served
calls and
constantly.
whatever, and getting served papers and from contractors or suppliers or whatever else. It
Which
was
it took us
awful.
years, but we dug
Yes.
our way through it, and only by God's grace, I have no other
I
explanation.
have no idea how we
did
never
not
filed
file
bankruptcy.
Yeah, there's
I have no idea.
there's no logical explanation
Yeah.
at all. Like on a sheet of paper, you could never make
Yeah.
that make sense.
Yeah, I mean, I remember even going and putting the attorney on retainer to file bankruptcy. You know, and
Yeah, you brought the
we never
packet
even got the
home
money back,
to
but
fill
it
out
was
the-
like $1,500, $1,800 to start the proceedings and
Yep.
start the paperwork and whatever else. But we never took it back. We never even filled out the packet.
You brought it home.
We started looking through it, but we never filled it out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny too. I know you were saying like how we have talked with people like over the years, whatever, but especially here in the recent past and in the now. And kind of going back to what you were saying earlier about that passage in Ephesians and how it really does, especially in today's time. I know of a lot of young women out there. I know of a lot of women my age out there. I know of women older than me. They get really nasty about the word submission.
Yes.
And I learned something very recently when I was listening to a podcast. Actually, it was with Lisa Harper, and she's finishing up getting her doctorate in theology. So she's like learning all of these things, and she's from Tennessee, which I love, but because she makes me feel a little bit like I'm at home again. But she was pointing out the translation for the word that God used in the book of Genesis when he created Eve,
Yeah.
helper. The only other time that word is used as helper anywhere else in Scripture, it is an attribute of God. So literally and we know, obviously we believe that God created us in his image. But he gave each of us attributes of himself, right?
Yeah.
That we possess. Well, being a helper in that sense, I tell my young girls that I pour into that, our guys are the head of the household, but we're the neck. We truly are the support of the direction we're going, right?
Yeah.
And so with that is a very dangerous responsibility if you take it and abuse it, because we as women are extremely manipulative. We know how to get you where we want you. We know what it takes to make you do the things we want you to do for us, because that's how we are wired. But it's so powerful to be able to have that responsibility, to be prayerfully considering where God wants us to go and whatever else. And so, I don't know, it took me a really long time to learn that, though. I mean, yes, that was pivotal in our marriage, but then for me personally, I had a lot of growing to do and a lot of learning to do, partly because I was raised by a mom who raised me to be a very independent woman. And not that it's bad to be an independent woman, but when you're in a marriage relationship, it's a team effort. It's a partnership. It's not an independent, I'm not my own LLC over here. It's, we're a corporation together. And so there's a lot of unlearning I've had to do. And
I think one of the other things that goes along with that, it's a partnership where marriage, the two become one with God. The first example of that is Adam and Eve. Mm-hmm. And I heard the story, and then, well, let me back up. I talk about the story of Ephesians and, ultimately giving myself up as Christ did for the church, right? As a sacrifice, whatever. And I kind of heard in a podcast, and I cannot remember who it was, but a couple of guys that do a lot of Christian podcasting were talking about Adam and Eve. And we always hear that Eve is the one that took of the apple. But what we forget in that moment is that Adam was standing right there.
Right.
Okay? And in the very first moment of adversity, Adam had an opportunity to protect his wife and chose not to.
Right.
So, by knocking the apple down, I think they put it kind of jokingly and slapping it out. What you doing, woman?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
But God told us not to do this. But that was the very first moment. And that was just like, I never really thought about that.
Well, and to what you just
That
said,
Adam was there.
God
And
told who? Adam,
Adam.
do not eat of the tree of knowledge.
Correct.
Eve had not been created.
Yeah.
It was Adam's responsibility
To protect her.
to protect her.
See, I didn't think about
and
that
that's-
part either. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's our battle because
Yeah.
we're from a fallen world of,
Exactly.
I
But it's
don't
very,
wanna be the
very
leader.
interesting when you say it, when you put all that together, and then you hear Paul talk about it in Ephesians of the model of marriage is Christ to the church and whatever. So if we had modeled that at the beginning of time,
right,
what could have been in the Garden of Eden by slapping that apple down or just stopping that, that opportunity.
I can assure you we wouldn't be sitting here having a podcast talking about losing everything.
Still running around without figs. So
Fig leaves.
nobody wants to see this with a fig leaf on.
We're thankful for modern clothing. I'm not going to lie. Although God did give them, he sacrificed an animal and made their clothing after the fig leaf situation.
Whatever.
You'd be more covered than a fig leaf, babe.
Okay.
I know. That, it's so funny. I think about that time and how much we endured over the course of several years. It wasn't just like 1 year and everything was hunky-dory again. It was, you changed careers. I went back to work full time. The kids came back to school with me. Like our lives changed.
It was a total shift.
In totally, like so many different ways.
Yeah.
And I know the next time you come and sit down and talk, babe, I think about that next kind of season, if you will, of our lives, or like next chapter, where you started traveling and then we started fostering.
Well, I think we started fostering first before I was traveling.
Do you?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, all of those things came
But yes. Yeah.
all together.
Yeah.
I know, as a lot of the things. Well, on that happy note, I guess we'll hit pause for now, yeah?
Yeah.
You seem
I think
like you're...
My allergies have been horrible today.
Yes, hence the glasses for me too.
And
I know.
I can barely breathe.
Yeah, this is
I've
called...
been in a sneeze fest for 2 days.
Right, this is Central Texas weather where it's mid-November and still in the 80s. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, today was 78. 77.
Okay, close enough.
It broke 80.
It did, so there it is.
Yeah, next week is Thanksgiving. So there you go.
I know. Well, it'll be airing right before, so. All right, y'all. Well, thanks again for stopping by the Edwards table. There is always a seat for you here. We certainly appreciate you coming in and listening in or watching us, depending on where you're joining us from. But definitely make sure you stop by. Give us a like, give us a follow, do all the things the younglings are doing, y'all.
Subscribe.
We'll see you next time.
That's the other term I gotta say. Subscribe. Subscribe, like, leave a comment.
Oh, yeah, comments. We like those. As long as they're nice. I'm just kidding.
Double tap for the heart on Insta.
Oh my gosh. See y'all next time. You're such a goofball.